Well, welcome everyone. My name's Kyle Menig. Excited to be with you today. We're waiting to see if some others log in, give them some time. But if you're feeling a bit stretched, maybe tired, or just not quite yourself, this is the right place. We're going to jump in and learn a little bit about burnout, our leadership, our life, and maybe how to make work feel a little more human today. So we'll get started here shortly. Thanks for joining, either live or maybe you're watching this as a recording. And I know in my kind of kickoff to this series in terms of the marketing, I said you could bring your favorite beverage. You could let me know what kind of beverage do you like when you need to refresh. I know today I have some strong coffee. That's what I'm using today. But I'm hoping, again, this is a time for all of us to have a bit of reflection, a bit of refreshment just to our life and give us some focus in how we're working and connecting with others. So feel free to ease in. We're going to jump in soon. Now, again, this is going to be a space, hopefully, we're going to get real and look at some real things. Thanks again for giving me some time. We're going to talk about a more relationally smart way to do life and do work and how to overcome burnout. Now, I'm going to be sharing my screen, of course. So let me start doing that. For our webinar, I'm going to call it, it's going to be like the Creeper Kyle mode, potentially. But I want to welcome you again to our time. Today is the first webinar in a series that I'm calling the Summer Leadership Reset. And it's really a time that's for you. So of course, today is the first kickoff webinar where we're going to be looking at burnout and ways to navigate it so that we can get unstuck and grow. I really try to think of today as a time to focus on you and your relationship with work. Next week, we're going to be looking at conflict and how it can be used to strengthen our relationships. And the reason I say it that way is, as a quick snapshot, we tend to only go into conflict about things that are important to us, about things that we think matter. And so because of that, conflict provides kind of a door to understand what matters most to us and others, and a path then to connect better, to resolve things faster so we can be more effective and stronger in how we connect or lead others. And then lastly, our third one, I'm calling it suck less every day. For those of you that don't like the word suck, feel free to add a T, stuck less every day. And what we're going to be focusing on in that webinar is how we can make some micro moves to grow and develop over time. It's a pretty natural process. We normally would call that learning. But somewhere when we're young, we hear that sucking is bad. And so we get a little more fearful of trying things, etc. But if you think about it, when we're kids, we suck at everything. We literally even have to have people spoon feed us. And so this session is to kind of reconnect with that growth and learning mindset, that it's okay to grow slow, take our time to get better at things. And so we're going to be focusing on that. And today, though, of course, I just want to introduce myself. Again, my name's Kyle Menig, leadership coach, consultant. A few things about me is I look at my career as helping people be good humans and learn how to work better together. I'm based out of San Diego, California. I've been able to do this work for a little over 25 years. And so it's always exciting for me to connect with people looking to grow and take new steps in terms of being more effective. Now, in terms of why you're here, you can see it on the screen even. You matter, right? You are valuable. So excited to have you here and in a place where you're looking to change or maybe grow a little bit. You're probably here because burnout isn't something you've just read online or heard about. It's probably something you're feeling and maybe something you're living. And so maybe you're showing up today, because you're doing that work, you're leading a team, but underneath it all, you might feel tired. I even call burnout a little bit beyond feel tired, I feel a bit crispy, is the way I kind of describe it. And you're probably here just because, again, something might feel off. You feel a bit exhausted, a little overwhelmed, maybe a little unmotivated. And you're not just maybe doing life the way you'd want. You're not even leading or working in the ways you might want. And so today's about giving that experience a name, of course, burnout. Try to unpack a bit of what's underneath it and explore what I would say is, again, a more relational, sustainable way forward. And I get it because I've been there. I think we've all probably been there. And I'll tell you what I find about burnout is that it can start out really small and then grow. Maybe you're leaning in hard on a big initiative and it feels like you're just kind of plugging holes in a dam. picking up the slack, carrying the weight, right? Because someone has to, right? It's kind of what we feel. And at first, this is the sneaky part, is that can feel like leadership, like you're doing whatever it takes. But over time, that pace becomes a trap. And if you're here, please realize in here that we don't burn out from a lack of drive. We often burn out because we rely on intensity when we really need is consistency. That's what we need. We need some consistent approach and practices to keep us on track and to keep us, taking new steps in a strong way. I feel like intensity, intense moments that come at us are more like adrenaline, little short bursts, but that kind of fuel is not sustainable. Without those consistent systems, again, maybe clear ways that we want to work and connect with others, every challenge can just feel really heavy, right? I kind of almost think about it as like a backpack. It's like our backpack just keeps getting full and keeps weighing us down. But consistency and having some new practices, some different tools for both you and maybe your team, that's what can turn those intense moments that come up into a tool that can actually help you get stronger. And so that's what we're looking at today, is what are some ways to look at these tools to use to work and do life a little differently, a little more intentionally. I really like this quote from Coach Lou Holtz. If you're not familiar with him, he's a football coach. I like this quote. It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. And it describes to me as kind of like this backpack. I've done backpacking, maybe you have too. And I've carried some heavy loads that I should not have. I packed way too much crap sometimes. But one of the nice things about a backpacking backpack is it has a special hip belt to help you carry the weight correctly. And I think, again, metaphorically, sometimes burnout just feels like this huge backpack. There's too much in it. It's weighing us down. It's slowing us down. And it's keeping us from making progress towards things that matter. And so what I would say too, that I've learned, is that part of what we're talking about today is that burnout isn't just about being busy. I think we all feel busy. Any industry I've worked with in the last, especially 10 years or so, whether it's a startup, fintech, construction, whatever it might be, government, education, everybody's working fast and working busy. What I find though about burnout is about disconnection. We're disconnecting from people, maybe from purpose, and sometimes even from ourselves. And so this session, just be clear, you're not going to hear me talking about grinding harder. It's really about learning how to lead yourself and maybe others in a way that's human, something that can build resilience so that you can bounce back when those intense moments do come up. So let me hear maybe in the chat why you're here today. Give me some thoughts in the chat, why you are joining us, what you might be hoping for. I'm going to stop share just to make it a little easier for me to see the chat. What are some things you're hoping? What brought you here? Give me some thoughts in that chat. I know for me, often webinars, I use webinars as a break in my day. How can I pause, maybe get another little takeaway, little nugget that kind of keeps me going, makes me think about something in a new way? Yeah, and that's a great reason. Often those of you that are leaders, it's not even maybe you that's feeling burned out. You might have a team where people are kind of on that verge of burning out. And so how can I learn how to support them? What are some tools to get into their hands? That's fantastic. And even, yeah, years of grinding. Oh my goodness. It's sad when grinding becomes the norm at times. And so again, part of today is maybe learning a different pace, a different rhythm of how we want to work and lead that does prioritize ourselves. We are part of the mix in terms of what needs some focus and some priorities. Let me start sharing again. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled webinar, but thanks for participating in that. And I want to start with a few slides, kind of lay the foundation. I call this one the truth bomb. But this is the thing, is that burnout isn't a flaw. It's a signal. Your mind, your body, maybe in your relationships, they're kind of waving a white flag that they're trying to get your attention that whatever's happening isn't working. Change needs to happen. And so whether that's for you or it's feelings you have of feeling a bit disconnected, or again, it's a way to check in with people on your teams or other coworkers or just people in your life. Is this trying to kind of check in on some of those signals? I think one statistic that got my attention was that nearly 1 in 4 employees are reported feeling burned out very often or always at work. And that's from a recent Gallup survey, as you can see. The reason I'm showing this one isn't to weigh you down. It's more just to help you feel that you are not alone. That same survey even mentioned that 75% of people feel burnout at least consistently. That sometimes it's coming up in their year. So again, you're not alone with that. Now, I think when we think about what burnout is, this is what's important to me. You can see it on the screen there, right? It's emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion. Again, it's more than just being tired. It's really feeling a bit overwhelmed. And it's caused by prolonged unmanaged stress. Now, I just want to highlight that idea of unmanaged stress. I feel like stress can help at times, right? When it's managed well, you think about an athlete in some of those athletic moments, maybe in an Olympics or just some big event, they're probably feeling a bit stressed. But if they've had that foundation, they've had that preparation, they can meet that moment, right? That stress can give them focus and it can probably give them some energy. What we're talking about with burnout is an unmanaged stress that can leave us feeling, like you could see on the screen, ineffective, maybe a bit cynical, and maybe even a bit numb. Again, just kind of this idea of almost like, whatever, let me just get through. And that's what we're trying to overcome today, because some of the symptoms are maybe feeling tired all the time, emotionally checked out, disconnected from the work we're doing. We're not understanding how what we do matters. And overall, we can lead to lower performance and motivation. And just to be super clear, of course, we're not alone in this. We've all been through moments or seasons of this. And so I'd like to hear again in the chat, what are some costs that you think of when you think of burnout? What are some costs? Again, it could be kind of more metaphorical type costs, but what are some of the things that you think about when you think of the costs of burnout? Give me some thoughts in the chat. I will, of course, share some. Coming up soon, I want to give you a chance first. I'm going to stop share just so I can see more. Oh, yeah, I like that. Lack of productivity, short-tempered, yeah. Maybe focus more on yourself than even others. That can definitely be a cost. Now, when I even think about some of the costs, everyone, it's more as well. I said not more, but just as well. It's like there's definitely an emotional cost. There's like an emotional weight at times. There can be relational costs, just the physical cost of feeling worn down. And then obviously there's material costs. So for those of you that are team leaders, maybe you're running an organization, there's other costs, including, not executing work, I see, to the standards, maybe that you can perform in, or you watch some of your team if you're a leader and it's like, gosh, they're not normally like that. Burnout kind of takes us away from the normal, that underperformance of a team. Yeah, good stuff. Really appreciate that. Now, part of what I'm going to share as well is just kind of this idea of even the material costs. Definitely there's life costs, emotional, physical, relational, but there's also material costs. I mean, it can cost you even personally at times, especially if it's a health kind of thing. But you're noticing here, even for organizations, employee burnout costs companies millions of dollars. And it could be an average of $4,000 or $21,000 per employee. Again, depending on the role, you can see it on the screen. But for a 1,000-person company, that could be $5 million a year. So there are a lot of costs on why kind of being able to self-care is going to be so important, so important. And part of what we need to try to do is, I will say, is kind of reframe the lens. That burnout doesn't happen, again, because you're weak. It happens because you're disconnected. And the way through burnout is often through healthy connection, first with yourself, healthy connection with kind of that relationship with work, and definitely connecting with people. It's going to help you get through. So we're going to talk about today, again, the relationally smart approach to burnout. How do we get unstuck and continue to grow and develop, even when things feel hard and overwhelming? What are the tools we can use to take those steps? So when I think about being relationally smart about burnout, I think it's about making some adjustments, pausing, reflecting, assessing our life, our work, evaluating maybe whether we're carrying a bit too much in our backpacks, if you will, our load, and trying to find that path, those steps we can take towards a sustainable life that we love. That's kind of what we're trying to shoot for, of course. So when I think about relationally smart, to me, the definition would be just learning to use information to make adjustments to be effective. And again, if I'm being intentional about life and about work, I'm able to make those adjustments. I'm agile with the things coming up. I can pivot quickly to make sure I'm on track with things that matter most. And And I think what helps me think about that is kind of an anchor and a buoy metaphor. So none of you thought you'd have a buoy test today, but give me some thoughts on why there are buoys on planet Earth. Again, feel free to put that in the chat. Why do you think there are buoys on planet Earth? How do they help? What do they help us do? What do people know about buoys? I'll fill in the gaps, of course, but yeah, I like that. It's a place so you don't lose your stuff, right? Absolutely. Buoys can help with that for sure. I just did a session with some folks in Australia, everyone, and they pronounce it buoy. So then I had to ask them why are there boys in the harbor and no girls. They didn't think that was a very funny joke. But yeah, buoys are there for a lot of good reasons. They float. You have to be able to see them because they can be a marker. They can give us navigation. They can, on bigger buoys, be a place that you could actually rest. You could connect your boat to. And if you surf, you might even recognize you can check information on buoys for water temperature, swell direction, etc. The point is, buoys are there for a lot of good reasons, and they can flex based on their environment. But they're all connected to anchors, things that are under the surface that we don't see. Now, why I bring this up about life is buoys to me represent things that we do, kind of our behaviors. They can move and flex based on their environment, but we all have something that anchors us, these motives and values that are under the surface. And we're actually trying to connect what we do, our behaviors, with who we are at our core, these motives and values. And when we live connected, we're most energized, we're most engaged. So to me, at least a kind of way of looking at burnout is when we're disconnected. We're not connecting what we do with who we are. Because ultimately, I would say that's kind of the secret. The secret to staying on track, navigating burnout, is more consistently connecting the things we do with those things that are important to who we are. And that's part of what we're going to look at today. How do we live more connected to ourselves, right? To our work in a healthy way, and also to others in our life. That's going to get us through and keep us on track. So the 5 things we're going to give some focus to, these kind of relationally smart moves. One, we're going to look at how to increase self-awareness. We're going to talk about increasing self-management. I would even say that's really self-care. We're going to talk about establishing good boundaries, how to say yes and no to things, growing some resilience through the connections that we have. And especially one of those main connections would be leveraging the relationships that we're a part of. That is really going to help get us through some of these things. So let's jump into the first section of 3. We're going to have 3 sections, 5 kind of smart moves. This one is that burnout has tells if you're paying attention. And one of the things we have to do is recognize these warning signs so that we don't break down, would be how I describe it, that we don't burn out, we don't get crispy. Now, I'm not a gambling man. I found a picture of some gambling men, but we need to understand the signs of burnout. And so a relationally smart move could be starting with knowing ourselves, right? That self-awareness. What are the things that do motivate us? What are these core values that we have that make us feel like ourselves? What are the strengths that we have that we bring into work, that we bring into relationships? And ultimately, what are the goals? What are we actually shooting for? I can remember kind of being a younger leader in my career in a certain organization I was working in. And I remember I felt a bit stagnant. I really wasn't sure, like, what are some good next steps for me? And I remember a colleague asked, well, what is it that you want? What do you want to do? And I remember at the time, it just felt like such a terrifying question because I felt like I don't even know. I don't even exactly know what I want. I'm kind of just on this treadmill of working, trying to get things done and knock it out of the park, so to speak, that I wasn't really understanding how that was connected to the bigger piece of Kyle's life. What are the goals driving me? And so, it's really helpful, of course, to know ourselves because otherwise life or work can feel like drifting. It can feel like drifting if we don't know why we're doing things and we're not connecting what's important to us with the things we do. Sounds pretty simple, but if you think about a buoy that's disconnected from its anchor, it's just banging around in the harbor and it's not even doing what its purpose is. It's not a guide. It's not something, right, that can warn us about things. That buoy is just banging around. Sometimes life can feel like that if we're just drifting. And so we need to get clear on what makes you, you. So a couple things I'd recommend if you haven't ever taken some kind of an assessment, there's a lot of good ones out there. There's one called the Strengths Deployment Inventory. It's one of my favorite. Probably hear a little more about it in our second webinar. But you could take something like Gallup Strength. You could take something like DISC. There's probably some free ones I know of online as well. But it just gives you some information that helps you feel like you're connecting with you. That's what you want to do here. You want to know yourself well and maybe get some feedback. You could ask some people in your life, like, what are the strengths you see me use? And they'll share with you the things they see you doing well. And that can feel, again, reaffirming that people recognize you. They value you. Those are kind of the things we're looking for to help us navigate burnout. The other part would be to know your signals. Maybe you're someone that, can work really well right when you first wake up. You have a lot of energy, a lot of focus, but maybe your energy starts to crash around noon, right? What are some ways to overcome that? Sure, but just know that you need to do your most focused work in the morning, for instance. Or maybe you're starting to feel irritable about small things, or maybe you're a little more withdrawn or disengaged than normal. Like, these are some signals that can get your attention, again, that something's off track. Maybe I'm not doing the ways that I normally do. I need to kind of re-engage and reconnect. I need to pause and reflect. There could be physical cues, headaches, sleep disruption, low motivation, maybe some emotional cues. You feel a bit detached. You're a little more resentful. You're comparing a lot yourself to others. There's feeling some shame. That whatever mindset could be coming in. What are some of the clues or cues that something isn't right and that something needs to change? And maybe, again, you could put in the chat, what are some of your cues or clues? I'll share one where you might be typing. This sounds like a weird one. Absolutely. I find when I'm starting to kind of burn out or feel a little disconnected, a little overwhelmed, I'm not as disciplined to want to floss. Floss is a kind of a normal thing, of course, but I'll recognize, like, I don't want to take the time to floss. Well, at least now I know that's like a clue. That is getting a signal to me, like life is feeling overwhelming if I'm not even going to take the 3 minutes to floss. It sounds like a weird signal, but at least it gets my attention, like, whoa, I need to kind of look at some things, look at my schedule if I don't even have the emotional energy to floss my teeth right now. And of course, I want to keep my teeth. So what are some of your clues? Think about them, because you have to know yourself to be able to navigate. Yeah, isolating ourselves can be as an avoidance or even a coping mechanism. And just such a natural thing to kind of protect, right? Oh my goodness. I know I do that too. I can definitely do that too. I don't want to kind of put myself out there. But the interesting thing, everyone, is like that kind of connection of feeling seen and known and valued is so important, so important. So when we think about some of the things we can do, one would be to even have a little mini reflection. Again, we already talked about it, put it in the chat, but just these are some other things to kind of prompt ways to reflect. How do I feel before a day even starts? Do I feel dread or do I feel drive? Again, that's just a clue. It's just some information to help us give some direction to our day. When do you feel most disconnected or overwhelmed? Are there certain things that come up that cause that? What are those things? Again, knowing the signals helps us navigate that differently. Information is always our friend. And what signs might you be ignoring even in your own body or your own behaviors? Sometimes I know my shoulders get real tight and tense when I'm feeling a bit stressed. And so I get a sore neck and I'm just creaking and cracking in ways not normal, because my body is actually responding and becoming tense, because inside, right, I'm feeling things, in a strong, intense kind of way. So just understand, again, the things that can get you off track. Now, this thing, I would say, this is why you're here probably in some ways, because to me, this is the place to start, either for yourself or definitely as a community, a team, to maybe take some time and create a personal mission statement. Okay, a personal mission statement. We don't want burnout to take over, but part of ways of navigating burnout and beating burnout is to have that clarity on what matters most to us. Again, we're drifting like a disconnected buoy if we're not connected to the things that anchor us. That's what we're looking for with a personal mission statement. Now, we're all kind of used to this, thinking about a company and our organizations have a mission statement. We may or may not remember exactly what it is, of course, a few of the words or something maybe. But the idea with a personal mission statement, you could even think about it as just a personal strategy to life, whatever you want to call it. Okay. But the purpose of it is to stop drifting. that we get clarity on what matters so we know this direction that we're going in. We know the value that we have, and it provides then a focus and becomes kind of that lens of seeing the world in terms of things that are moving me towards my purpose and things that may not be, things that might be getting me off track. If it's not moving me towards my purpose, again, it gives us that clarity on things we might need to say yes to more consistently. It's moving us forward, or things we need to start saying no to a little more consistently that might get us off track. And that can help us with life and with work, of course. Now, real quick, I will say this, I get no kickbacks. I don't work for Franklin Covey. I get nothing from this. But in terms of a free tool, Franklin Covey has a personal mission statement builder website. I'll put the link in the chat here shortly. I'm probably going to just distract everyone now from the webinar. But I would say this thing is a fantastic exercise and activity. It has about 10 different prompts or questions to work through. And what you'd end up creating, let me just go over here, is a 2-page PDF of your personal mission statement. Now, I'm not, you could probably see it if you read fast, my mission statement, but I just want to highlight, it takes you through 4 areas about character. The person, I will be a person who, what do I really love about the work I'm doing, et cetera. My life's journey is, it kind of gives you these prompts, contributions, achievements, and then also values and principles. But that activity is fantastic. It can be a great way to pause, to reflect, to really connect to the things that matter most to you. Because again, that's what you're wanting. You're wanting some of that direction. Now, let me just move a little bit of zoom around here. I'm going to grab this link. I will put it in the chat. Because again, whether it's for yourself, which I would highly recommend, whether you feel like you're in burnout or not, living with intention and purpose is going to help you feel fantastic and give you that clarity and that alignment, that connection of what matters most. But it's a great activity for teams. Give them the time, maybe up to an hour to complete this. And maybe at a team meeting, people share their personal mission statements with each other. This is fantastic. And again, I think this is one of the first steps in overcoming burnout, is just to really reconnect again to what matters most to ourselves. So hopefully that'll become a fantastic tool for you. Now, I'm going to get to our second section. We talked first, again, about the tells of burnout and that we need to grow that self-awareness. Absolutely. We're going to start talking about, though, this idea that we need to protect our energy. Okay, we need to protect our energy, not just our time. And this is the thing at the bottom, you can kind of see it. It's a little small, but to me, it's the biggest point here. We need to protect and guard your energy because it's valuable. You're valuable. Burnout, to me, right, it's not just about managing time. It's about managing our energy. I think burnout, what it tries to do is almost sap our energy. It can leave us exhausted. Burnout, to me, is kind of almost like a vampire that leaves you alive, but depleted. And again, energy it's valuable because you are valuable. So we need to guard and protect things that are valuable, and our energy is one of those things. We need to put our energy into the things that are important, which of course it's going to be relationships, it's going to be certain parts of work, but we don't want that work to become overwhelming. We're going to talk about boundaries soon, but we need to protect that energy so that we can do the important things. So let's jump into that a little bit. When this is saying self-management, again, a relationally smart move to overcome burnout, self-management, I would even think of that as self-care, because burnout thrives when we ignore things that are really going on. So we need to be real clear to understand what's going on. Again, going back to that kind of metaphor of a backpack, we need to understand what's going in our backpacks. What are the things that we need to pay attention to and carry? What are the things that we don't? Again, a personal mission statement helps us say yes to things or no to things. We need to work well and in a healthy way. So self-management, just to be clear, is not about powering through or pretending everything's fine. No, it's about paying attention to what you're feeling, honor that, make intentional choices instead of just reactive ones. So let's talk about how do we do that. Some of the tools you can start to practice. One would be micro breaks. I encourage people that I work with, coach or consult, Some of them I say, look, 5 minutes every 30 minutes, you might need to just take a little micro break. Some it's 5 minutes every hour. I mean, obviously, we're all unique humans, but building in some micro breaks, and I even ask them to put it in calendars, to have little alarms go off to remind them, stand up, take a break, think about something else, go look outside, stretch, whatever it might be. Part of that could be pausing and breathing. I'd say before you actually would break, burn out, or get crispy. If you think about it, I mentioned this kind of idea of athletes in the past part of our webinar. You might see them before a big moment take some big deep breaths, some slower breaths. It gives them focus. Now, I'm a super weirdo. I do that before I do like a workshop or something. I'm like in the back stretching, taking some deep breaths, but it's helpful. Now, when I think about burnout, the ways I like to use this activity of pause and breathe is I kind of breathe out. In some ways, I metaphorically think of it as negative stories, negative thought. And I breathe in some of the things that are true about who I am and what's important to me. And so I like that kind of mental moment to kind of breathe out again, negativity, negative thoughts, negative stories, and really breathe in kind of a more healthy version. And that's part of this idea of even reframing the spiral. Instead of saying things and telling ourselves stories around, oh, this is too much, I'm overwhelmed. It's remembering that, right, we have some power in this. We have an ability to choose. What's a step I can take right now? Sometimes the step we can take is to take a break, to be clear on, I'm not able to do this right now, to someone that might be asking us to do something. Whatever it might be is, again, reframe the spiral that might normally take you down. So I think those are some helpful tools as well. And then I mentioned boundaries. That would be another relationally smart move to overcome burnout, is really to start to think through, how am I with boundaries? Boundaries, again, really set some clear guidelines on things that are part of me and things that are not. And so when we think about boundaries, we need to have this kind of self-empathy. A lot of organizations, leaders trying to grow empathy, how we see and feel things even about others. But we also need to start and honor ourselves in that. We need to stop abandoning ourselves to meet everyone else's needs. We need to be able to make sure that we are part of the mix, because you're valuable. We are valuable. And so boundaries help you prioritize. Again, what are the things you need to prioritize? Definitely you're part of that. Healthy boundaries, again, aren't selfish. To me, they're strategic and they're smart. That's why it's a smart move to have good boundaries, healthy boundaries. They can be practiced by even learning to say something like, look, I would love to help you when someone comes up kind of out of nowhere, but not right now. And get out a calendar. This is when I could help you. That's just one example. But it's learning to advocate for what you can give without running yourself dry, because you can't give away what you don't have. I think that's just a basic principle of life, and definitely a principle of leadership. It is hard to give away what you don't have. You will be depleted, and no one needs a depleted you. Okay. Now, a pro tip here I would say is boundaries are less about saying no, but learning to say no and practice that can be healthy. Absolutely. But it's more about learning to say yes to the things that matter. That's, to me, what a healthy boundary is. And that's why today, again, the foundation of learning how to beat burnout is creating a personal mission statement. And again, just to make sure we're clear, I get no kickbacks from Franklin Covey. I just love that that's a free tool. Explore that site. Now, our last section today is going to be this reminder that burnout is not weakness. It's really about disconnection. And the idea that you don't need more willpower, you just need more connection, is part of what's really helpful. You need to connect right to yourself, those things that matter. You need to connect well with people around you. You need to connect well with your work in a healthy way. And so we just need to learn, how do we build better connection? And part of that's going to come through resilience, like building resilience, this opportunity to bounce back, so to speak, is what resilience is. When hard things happen, I'm able to bounce back. Having a good foundation, like a mission statement and good relationships, is going to help us do that. And partly it's because in a world of artificial, you need to be you. You need to be authentic, and you need to be human. We are not machines. We have humans, we have values, we have motivations. We need to connect with those things. That helps us grow resilience. And so we need to connect with those things, again, that matter most. So a helpful way of reflection is trying to think through, how do the things important to me connect to the things I'm doing at work? You can see that prompt, what gives your work meaning when things are tough? It could be about connecting with people. It could be that you're just tapping into things that give you self-worth. It could be that you're just, knocking things out of the park. Whatever these things are that give meaning to the work you're doing, reflect on those, remember those. And I like this, again, question of just what impact are you proud of? So maybe even in the, chat right now, whether you just do a self-reflection or feel free to put it in the chat, what's an impact that you're proud of? I know in the work I've been doing while you're writing or thinking in the last 10 years, especially, has been a lot of training of workshops and leaders, et cetera. But I had one particular session where a gentleman came up afterward, and the main focus of that workshop was on communicating and collaborating well with others, how to work focused. But the tools we were using, he was making some connections on how communicating and collaborating, connecting with family was going to be an important takeaway. And I remember he came up afterwards and said, some of these tools and things that we practice today are actually going to be able to help me connect with my daughter. I have an adult daughter. I haven't spoken to her in 2 years. And an impact like that just really caught my attention. It stood out to me because I don't always expect that a session I'm doing, someone's going to have something deeper than the work they're doing, because work's really important, of course. But that was just a really meaningful impact. I like one I've seen in the chat, training or helping others, they learn a task and they say, thank you, I can do my job better now. Yeah, like that kind of recognition of a part that you played and helping them kind of be unstuck and take a new step. Fantastic. I love that. That's a great example. Now, another relationally smart move then, beyond being able to grow some resilience and remember that we need to think and reflect on the impacts we're making, because that can get us through these intense times. Because burnout, right, again, is this when there's intensity over time, unmanaged stress can feel overwhelming. We also need to have those good relationships. When we think about burnout, I'll just start in the top left. Burnout really is about disconnection. It's a disconnection problem that tries to keep us isolated. That's why I want to make sure you know that you're not alone in it. And that relationally smart humans, I would describe, they build circles of support. It could be mentors. And some of you in organizations might even have mentoring official programs. But if not, right, you can have ones that you just do, on your own. Reach out to people. Talk to peers. There might be teammates that you could describe that have your back. Who are the people I can be honest with, or text, or call, or meet with when everything seems to hit the fan? Make sure they're on speed dial, right? But you want to also just regularly grow and build those relationships, and then normalize asking for support. To me, asking for support is leadership. It's not weakness. It's recognizing I don't have what it takes for this right now, and I need some support. It could be professional by getting some coaching. Again, it could just be creating a program. But if you're a leader here as well, make sure you're creating the kind of team who knows it's okay to ask for support. And then that pro tip ultimately is be that person for others. Again, you may not be in the place right now where you're feeling like you're in burnout and you're here to get some tools, but I'd say you want to actively share with others that I am the person to come to when things can feel overwhelming. So in terms of some final thoughts, and then we'll see if there's any questions that come up. There's a lot we've looked at today, just trying to unpack a little bit of this idea of how do we beat burnout a little more intentionally and with a little more humanity. But one of the ideas is, again, burnout isn't failure, it's feedback. You are not broken just by experiencing some burnout. You might just feel overloaded. And so the nice thing is you can do something today about it. You can practice some small steps to create some fantastic, huge outcomes. Again, you're going to hear me over and over say, let's talk about that Franklin Covey mission builder. Because again, I think it's a great activity of reflection to connect with what matters most. Burnout is a relational issue. It's not just a personal one, right? You have a relationship with yourself, with your work, and with others. And so burnout is what comes from systems of disconnection. And then we're going to recover through relationships that are helping us feel safe and strong. So again, you can be that person that creates that kind of culture for your team or even your organization. You can be the person that leads into and through this. And this is the nice thing to remember is we don't have to fix everything at once, right? It's about starting with one small step at a time, one small step. Now, the things that we've looked at in terms of some steps is one, growing some self-awareness, that you catch burnout before it can take root. What can help with that, of course, might be taking an assessment of some sort, personality or strengths assessment, and creating that personal mission statement we've gone over multiple times at this point. Self-management, which again, I just think of as self-care. That's like really looking at your calendar, your time, protecting that. But even more importantly, protecting your energy. Remembering that you have only so much energy to give before things feel overwhelming. We kind of describe that as a big, heavy backpack. What are some ways I can share that load or delegate some of that out? And part of what that does is also gives you some power over your reactions to things. It helps you respond right more in a more healthy, strong way. We talked about connections and boundaries because, again, it protects your energy and your relationships. And then we talked a little bit about resilience because resilience is fueled by that clear purpose that you have and the support of others. It's not about just toughing it through things. Now, in terms of taking one small step, of course, sometimes that just feels like a crawl. I would encourage each of you to try to identify a sign of burnout for yourself. What gets your attention that things aren't right and that something needs to change? Make sure you understand that. So again, it doesn't surprise you when it happens. It just gets your attention to make a healthy choice and a healthy move. Reflect to reset would be what I would then encourage you to do. Make sure you build in times of reflection. Maybe it's just at the end of the day, take 5 minutes and try to think through, hey, what went well today? What's something I could do different tomorrow? And just finish your workday with some thought like that to kind of free you and set you up then to be at home and connect with others differently. Maybe you want to practice setting a boundary this week. That could be something really helpful. Or you just start practicing asking for the support that you need whenever, right, you might need it. And then you can see the major encouragement is to learn to suck a little less, right, together every single day. That's what's going to get you moving forward. Now, if you're here and you're looking for more, I'm trying to share a few tools and I'll have a sheet, a PDF that I'll put in the chat here shortly. I would say this, right? Don't guess your way through leadership. On my website, I have some things about some jumpstart coaching package that I'm calling it that can help you lead with intention, influence, and impact. Right from the start, I will tell you the secret. We are going to start with a personal mission statement. What's nice about a coach is you get some other eyes on it. You get someone else that's kind of outside of your life to give you some thoughts and give you some encouragement. This is the thing, as great leaders, you can see they don't wing it. They get coached. So if you see pro athletes, what do they all have? Coaches. So a lot of executives all have coaches. So it may not be with me, could be with someone else. But if you're feeling like you need a little bit more, I would encourage you, do some Googling, look for a coach that you might want to connect with. It's going to help you move faster and more effectively towards the goals that you have. There's my website. You can explore. Again, I'm going to put a PDF about burnout here in the chat pretty soon. But the main thing I would say is you want to get what you need to be effective. That's what we're looking for. Now, I want to thank you again for the time that you've given me. So you can see ways to connect with me if you want to through LinkedIn. Could be looking at my website, could be throwing me an email. If there's other things I can help you with, feel free to explore that with me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so I can put that document in the chat. So just give me a second. And you can feel free, if there's any questions, you can put those in the chat. We have a little bit of time. But again, that PDF on relationally smart burnout is coming at you in the chat. Feel free to download that, share it. I am recording this, so as a thank you as well for attending, you'll get a recording of our time that you can share with others. Eventually, I will also get this on YouTube. It'll connect to my website as a resource. But I hope as we finish up again, as we think about relationally smart ways to navigate burnout, some of the main things to remember is just connect well with yourself, connect well with your work and kind of look at that, make sure you're carrying the load that seems correct for what you're doing. But always look at it as a way of connecting well with others. Relationships are what's going to help you navigate the hard things in life. And so we need to be proactive to have those stronger, healthier ways of connecting with things that matter. and people matter, and you matter. So again, in a world that can feel artificial, just be you. Be a good human. Thanks for the time.